For my small business interview, I was able to interview Skip Sagres, who is a Dunkin' Donuts franchisee to begin with, and now a property developer. He's a friend of the family, and it was pretty cool. Let's see. All right. So for his initial opportunity, he met William Rosenberg, who is the founder of Dunkin' Donuts. At a young age, he actually bred horses with Skip's dad, and he kind of talked with Skip a little bit and kind of told him that he should work for Dunkin' Donuts when he gets older, and kind of served as inspiration for what Skip does now. Right after college, Skip went and managed some warehouses right outside Boston. He did a couple different jobs, but he distributed anything from Hostess to cigarettes, beer, McDonald's food, all sorts of different things. And then he kind of wanted to get out of the warehouse industry because he was working a lot and not really getting paid accordingly. So he trained under his friend Fernando, who was actually a friend of his dad's, who owned a Dunkin' Donuts. And Fernando kind of showed him the ropes with the hopes that Skip would then open his own Dunkin' Donuts. So Skip was able to borrow $100,000 even though he didn't really have much money from the bank. And it was basically on good faith, which is interesting, a lot different than it is now. He was able to one of his friends worked at the bank, and they were able to give him a loan for $100,000 for him to start his new business. All right, so when he was looking at where to start his business and open his store, he got criteria kind of from Fernando of what to look for. So what he would do is he would go and sit outside the potential property and do a traffic count. So from 6 to 11, which were his main hours, he would sit out there for around 8 hours a day, but from 6 to 11 when he paid the most attention, and the first 10 minutes of every hour is when he would count how many cars went through and then multiply that by 6 to get the count for each hour, and thus the whole day. And he would also analyze the types of cars, which was interesting. He would look for something ideally like this pickup truck. He was looking for someone that was a blue-collar worker and that also had disposable income, so someone like a successful construction worker or a landscaper. And then he would also want to be on the morning side of the road, which I thought was interesting. So if the commute was going north, then he would want to be on the east side of the road so that the customers could just take an easy right and then go into the store. He also looked at the competition, what other stores were out there, specifically anything that was serving breakfast or coffee. And then he would look at the piece of land itself, whether it was easy to build on, if there were wetlands, any sort of permits, things like that. And then he opened his first store. He found a perfect location in Haverhill, Massachusetts, which is still in operation today, even though he sold it quite a while ago. And he opened it in 1985, and it was profitable within its first month, which was actually pretty interesting. So he never really had any business failure. He was lucky because Dunkin' Donuts will often provide you with the equipment and the processes, everything, to make it a little easier for you. And then, so making it, he realized that he really did not like managing this first store. He didn't like dealing with all the people and things like that, but he really liked the development side. So he was actually the first person in the country to start developing stores and the building sites, and then he would lease them to franchisees, which was something that they hadn't done before. So this was his first real strategic decision that got him started. He currently owns about 9 properties, and he was as high as 14 a few years ago. His capital structure was something he didn't really get involved in. It was different for every store. And then his revenue stream was pretty interesting. It was 12% of his sales, the sales of the store, so if it was a good performing store, he would make a lot of money. Or he would collect a base fee even if it was underperforming. So advice that he gave was research. Obviously, his traffic count. He would even do interviews in town to see what people thought of the Dunkin' Donuts. And obviously, starting a business is a lot different now than it was in 1985. The government has hand in everything. Loans are a little bit different, as previously mentioned. He said don't get discouraged. In the first 6 months, you may not turn a profit. You may not be making any money, so you're not going to have any pay. You've got to figure out the right time when you have enough money to cover that period where you're not going to be making any money. Also help others because you never know when something's going to come back. So he was successful because he understood the risks. Research was key. He knew what he enjoyed doing, and then he capitalized on it, which was the development. He generated goodwill with people. At one point, he actually, instead of putting someone else out of business, he asked them to be their partner, and they're super successful now with over a dozen stores. And he had a first mover advantage, being the first one in the country to do that. And how it'll impact me, when it involves a lot of money, just be sure of what you're doing. Don't be afraid to ask for help. You know, example would be him getting $100,000. I don't know if that happened today, but it doesn't hurt to ask. Benefit others, good karma, things like that. When he helped the other businessmen, it kind of came back to him because a lot of people wanted to work for him or at least from him. And then the power of a brand. And Dunkin' Donuts is extremely popular, and him just coming in was just his brand alone would often sell. And that's the end of the presentation.